What is going on, my fellow Summit Chasers? Welcome to another Saturday, another Summit Coffee Club, and we have a great guest today. He's one of my good friends, Mr. John Duffin. But before I bring him up here, we have a few things that we need to go over and cover. One is get your tickets for the Young Professionals Leadership Summit if you haven't already. That is coming up on October 19th in Toronto, Ontario. But don't worry if you don't want to go to the Great White North. Maybe you're in the States, or maybe you're on the other side of Canada. Everybody, whenever I'm Canadian, when I moved to the States, and I tell people that I'm Canadian, they'd always think that every Canadian knew each other. They think I'm from Calgary, Alberta, which is next to BC. It's on the West Coast. And I'd always get this question. I have a friend that went to Toronto once. Maybe you know them. First of all, there's more than 4 people in Canada. And Canada's gigantic. It's bigger than the States as far as land mass. So no, I don't know your friend who went to Toronto once, who lives in Ontario, which Ontario is twice the size of Texas. I don't. But if you don't want to go to the Great White North, that's totally fine. We have a virtual option, $60 for in-person for tickets, $20 for virtual. It's priced so that any young professional, wherever they are in their career, whether they're thinking of moving into a leadership role, maybe they've been a high performer, maybe they've been an individual contributor for a very long time, like, I think I kind of want to get into doing some leadership. I think I want to kind of move up into management. I want to be able to move up in the company. This is great for you. Perfect for you. All right. You're going to hear stories from individuals who have worked their way up worked their way up. I've had way too much coffee this morning. By the way, where's my Tim Hortons representing Canada? Tim Hortons this morning, that have worked their way up in companies from bottom floor to becoming CEOs, to becoming directors of very large companies. You're going to hear a lot of these stories, a lot of tactical things that you can take away and implement right away, whether you're a business owner trying to grow your team, or whether you're trying to get promoted to maybe you're in a manager position right now, you want to get promoted to director or VP or something like that, or you just want to move into your leadership role. You're going to get a lot of tactical takeaways that you can use right away to be more successful in your career and in your business. So you can go to yplsummit.com to get your tickets, and you can learn a little bit more about some of the speakers. That is yplsummit.com, and check out everything there. Also, a little update, make sure that you're keeping up with our shows. You can sign up for our newsletter. I'm going to be leaving the link for the newsletter in the comments afterwards. Sign up for a newsletter, get updates on our shows. We are going to be updating our live show list starting next week, actually starting in September. Holy crap, we're at the end of August already. That is wild. Time flies so much, especially when you're busy, when you're grinding. Time just goes by so fast, right? You're so focused on everything that's right in front of you that time just goes by. But starting next week, starting in September, the lineup of the shows is going to change a little bit. It's still going to be every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to have the Founders Focus. And then Thursdays, we're going to have our Summit Success Series. And we're always going to have our Summit Coffee Club Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, 7 or 11. I went the other direction, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And just the format of some of the shows are going to change a little bit, but it's going to be great. We have a lot of great guests lined up. John's going to be a recurring guest on some of those as well. So sign up for the newsletter so you can stay up to date with all those. We have a new podcast coming out. We have amazing guests in our podcast. The guest that we have next week is actually one of my heroes. He is the author of, some of you probably know him better from the One Page Marketing Plan, but he has his new book out, The Lean Marketing. Alan Dibb had him on the podcast, and that podcast goes live next week. So very excited for y'all to be able to check that out. And also in the newsletter, you get some tips and tricks and some business foundational insights on how you can be more successful in your business, and you can start to utilize your skills more effectively. You can create a business that lasts with great people, great culture, and lasts for a long time, whether you want to exit for a higher value or you want to keep rolling, you want to build that empire. So there's my updates. I'm going to shut up now and I'm going to introduce my guest, Mr. John Duffin, the king of communication. And I was trying to think of other things that rhymed with like he's the talent that talks. I don't know. Here's John. What's going on,
The
John?
talent that talks.
I was trying to think of all these like
That's
communication,
a very lofty title.
right? The king of community. What's another one? What's another word for? I don't know. I'll think of it. Think of it later. I should have been
Anyway,
more prepared
cheers,
with that.
Bob. Oh wait, that's not good product placement. Hold on, let's
This
do
isn't
that.
good product placement.
And you're talking about your too much coffee. I'll show you. But anyway, it's absolutely awesome to be here. Great to be here, man.
Beautiful. No, good to have you. It's this one's Happy Saturday, Adrena.
Boom.
Adrena's on her way to Adrena's in a
Adrena.
car right
Great
now on her
seeing
way to
you.
the big city. So
Oh, nice.
good morning,
Zach,
everybody.
before we continue, I was going to say I do know somebody who was in Toronto once. I think they were shopping in one of the stores. Did you get to run into them? Or
I think I did. Yeah, it was Jeff, right?
oh
Yeah.
no, but maybe that's an alias.
Yeah, it is funny when I first moved to the States when I was 19 or 20. I can't remember. It's one of those ones. It was a weird time in my life. I would get that all the time, and it was so much fun because I feel like they're even less like in a lot of Americans and in Vegas. Again, I don't want to say anything rude, but they weren't as educated about the Great White North as we were about America. So I could convince so many people that like, oh yeah, we took dog sleds to school. Like we had a team and they hung out in the backyard. Yeah, we had igloos like polar bears everywhere. Like we could convince them of like kind of silly things like that.
I love
fairly
it.
regularly. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do that until they Google was a thing.
And then see it. And the one time I was in Toronto, which I loved to death. I was only there for maybe 5 days, and I loved it to death. Yeah. And it reminded me of Chicago in a sense. I mean, there are definitely similarities, and I say that as a high compliment. That just big booming city. I didn't see a dog sled. By the way, I go through that sometimes with I didn't come out of the closet until I was like 42 years old. And very often if I'm speaking with someone, I get it. Oh, do you know? And it's like I don't know every gay person. I know a lot of them.
Sure?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Take that back. I'm sure I do. We all have a recurring newsletter that we send to each other. Oh my God, is that Chrissy? Yo,
I do stock snap maps to check out life in remote Canada. It is a vibe. In remote, like if you go north, like the Eskimos, right? If you go north, like we're there, like in none of it, like the Northwest Territories and that kind of stuff. It's intense. It's very, very intense. I mean, it's Alaska. Yeah, it's Alaska, but not anywhere near the coast. Like it's very desolate, tough terrain, but they're tough people up there. They're tough people. So I guess it is a vibe, Chrissy.
I'm a city boy, so I that to me it just feels like a very old show, Green Acres, when I'm doing things like that, where it's like you're pulling me out of the city. But I'm a full-on city boy with that, so it sounds great.
Yeah. So you're the king of communication, right? I put that title upon you.
Quite kind of you.
Yeah.
To say the least.
You earned it. So give me an idea. How do you start? How do you get into that, like specifically communication? Because it is such a specific, discipline, I guess, is right. Communication. And I know that you do have the voice, for you're doing like voiceovers and that kind of stuff. Correct. But how did you get into like the actual communicate, like executive communication?
Thank you. You know what? It's funny. That came from a family thing, by the way, like speaking of family tree and hierarchy and what have you. So it took me a while to like figure out what I wanted to do. And I was one of those people that like through my 20s and like into my early 30s that I kind of floundered in terms of a number of different things. The family part, I have 2 sisters. I consider them both the gold standard. And they were both they're both younger than me. I'm the oldest of 5. They were both younger than me, but they were both in the field. How I knew, like on the advertising, and one was television, one was radio, both in the sales dynamic, coming from an advertising career. How I knew I wanted to make the shift was something really casual. And that's one of the things I would say is you never know where like the bug is going to get you.
Yeah.
And where it came from was we had and have, still do, a lot of mutual friends. And I can remember we would be on, say, for instance, we like maybe go to the beach one weekend, one day, whatever, one summer, and conversations would break out. And I was at that time in more of a finance role. And I was really unhappy, And so I can remember the conversations that interested me was the best way to say it. That there were certain conversations that were breaking out on a beach on a Sunday, like this program, rather than people selling at each other or formalized training. It was a very casual way of what was going on in their lives. And why I say that was there were finance conversations because there were finance people there. There were others, obviously, but I always gravitated toward those conversations that centered in communications. I found them fascinating. On a casual side. I had no interest in the conversations that were more finance driven or like that business. I had no interest. So that was the big clue. And I then went in the field and I started, and it felt very true and right for me early. And I bring up my sisters because, again, they were the gold standard. I felt like if I could be half as good as they were, I could make a mark. I could do something. And so my time, my effort, what I wanted to learn, the risks and what have you, they were all worth it to me then and now because there was something about it that drew me to it. And I knew it. So anyway, that's what got me into the field.
No, that's really interesting. And communication is such a fun, intricate discipline when it comes to, I mean, it's skill, really.
Absolutely.
And it's fun. It's not fun. I mean, it is fun. I keep saying fun. It's like whatever. But it's very intuitive, and it's almost like a puzzle piece to figure out kind of, okay, here's what needs to be communicated. Here's how to communicate it most effectively. Here's how to communicate it in this particular situation to these types of people. So it's a very interesting topic. And I see a lot of like with our clients as well. Like we just signed on a client, and he's very driven. He's very just like, I'll run through any wall I need to in order to make this business work. Which is, I mean, that's, you get a lot of founders, and then their business starts to grow a little bit. Then that's the mentality that got them there, but it's not necessarily the mentality that's going to get them to the next step, sort of thing. But when you talk to a lot of these founders, and they're like, "Well, I keep hiring these people and they don't work out." All right. And it's like, okay, did they not work out, or did they not even know what expectations were? Did you not communicate these types of things? So that's where we see a lot of like communication lapses, is clearly communicating your expectations, not assuming, not pretending like you're communicating to in the mirror. So you're not communicating to like somebody who's the exact same as you, because everybody's different, right? You want to communicate to the person and get the outcome. You don't want to communicate to you and have them expect what, like, just understand what the outcome is. So for you, having, I mean, you work with executives and all this kind of stuff on their communication. What would be like the one biggest probably hurdle or thing that holds leaders, high achievers back from being an effective communicator?
I would say the most base way to say it is the lack of repetition. I learned, one of the things I learned really early in my career is that communications is a progressive business. And what I mean is, take out if in your mind, if you're an executive and somebody says, well, did you communicate? They are not yes or no questions. Okay. So one of the biggest challenges that I was able to overcome early, because people helped me with that, I just happened to do it, was the understanding that it would be great if you were able to answer all of the world's problems, or that client's problems, or that executive's problems in one communication. It's a very unrealistic expectation. That's the first thing I learned. Secondly, progressive. It's a series of progressive moves. You just said did you communicate the expectations? It's not a yes or no question, really. Here's how. And then when we followed up with it, here's how this went. And then when we were talking about this example, that's the real answer. A client, an original client of mine, said to me point blank, and I never forgot it. So my God, this is close to, 30 years ago. I let you in because he's like one of those typical, like that he's the client, so to speak. So all the competition needs to see this person, one of the bigger advertisers in the region. He said, I always let you in the door, always. He said, because you always have something different to tell me. You've got something to say. So it's a progressive business. It is a preparation business. Do not waste someone's time. It is always do your homework and things progress. Relationships, or they should, relationships progress. And so it doesn't mean you're going to get another opportunity, so take a lazy approach. Don't. You never know that. You have to earn the next opportunity. And I always knew that. Whether it was like weird things, like I didn't want to let my sisters down or embarrass them or be like the deadbeat that didn't, where it didn't work out or whatever. It mattered to me. So that sense of, does it matter? When you talked about your colleague or client, I'll run through walls. Well, then it's going to matter. But then take the steps each time to make certain that you've earned the right to be in the room this time, and then understand that your ability to earn your right to be in the room or seat at the table the next time is a different situation. It's one of the things that I teach in regards to my coaching stuff. Each opportunity is earned prior. Do not rest on your laurels, because again, you're going to bore somebody, and then they're going to be like, you know what? I know where he's going. So anyway, that's what helped me.
That's one thing about communication, is that is a skill that you have to intentionally improve upon, right? And there's steps that you can take. Like there's people that learn how to speak when they're terrified of speaking in front of people. They're terrified of public speaking. They stutter, just like I just did. They can't get their point across. Like there's a block between what they're thinking up here and what is coming out of their mouth. And you can get a coach. You can take courses, you can practice, eventually you can get better at communicating. A lot of people don't think that is something that you can get better at. Either you're a good communicator or you're not. You're smart or you're not. And a lot of times the smartest people aren't necessarily the best communicators, but they are they're the most aware of what's around them, the most aware of the people that they're speaking to. They're the most, I guess, empathetic.
Or they have the most potential.
I understand who I'm talking to. And out of this conversation, out of this interaction, there's an outcome I need to achieve. So I need to communicate in a way, and that's one of our laws of leadership. I think it's Summit Laws of Leadership number 3 is make sure all leaders should be communicating from the third perspective, which is as an observer of the conversation. So how is what I'm communicating to this person, how is it affecting them? How they're communicating, how am I reacting, how they're communicating, and is it in line with the goal or the outcome we're trying to create? Right. So it's being not hyper aware, but being aware of how your communication is affecting them, and is it pushing them in the right direction towards the outcome we're trying to create? And that's a skill. You can practice it. If you're intentional about it, you can practice it.
I'll say better. You should be practicing it. And more than you can, you need to. It is where I am with it. It's just too important. One of the things that I was also lucky enough to have learned, and whether the easy way or the hard way or whatever it was, it's more recent. When we went virtual, like from the field that I was in, we were always looking at live in-person meetings. They just resonated better. And it was harder to define why that was so. You know what I mean? Like we were going into an era a few years ago before lockdown and all that stuff, where it was like you took for granted the fact that you were going to have an in-person meeting, and then you didn't. So one of the things that I've realized, which applies whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, which is you've got to connect with somebody. You have to. And it's not as hard as you think. And that's the one thing if any sort of a takeaway, which is you're always speaking to someone. You're never speaking at someone. And so often in the communications game, people look at these as one-sided conversations. I better remember to say, oh, don't forget to say. Well, then if they say, then you say, well, that's all one way. And it's like, as you're talking about communicating expectations and what have you, the easiest way to know if you did is ask them. You know what I mean? Without making them feel dumb, it's just fucking ask them. So what I learned in virtual is there are ways to communicate to people, even virtual, like the most basic things of looking into a camera lens, not looking over here or looking down or reading notes, like talk to somebody. And so your in-person opportunities, or if it's a telephone opportunity, the best ways to connect, and they are rarely lengthy emails or text messages, right? Never really.
We're just leaving too much up to interpretation at that point, especially if it's somebody new, or if this is like a new initiative, or if it's just somebody who hasn't been working with you for a long time. So they're not at the point where they know what you're thinking before you even say anything. You're just leaving too much up for interpretation. And then the mistake a lot of leaders will make, and I've ran into this a lot,
right,
is when that person fails, they don't achieve the goal, right? Then they blame them. They blame them. And then there's like, we didn't hire the right person. It's like, okay, well, there's a lot of steps. There's a lot of ways you can take responsibility for that, outside of just they're not like they're the wrong person, right? There's a lot in there that you can unpack and improve upon, right?
Well, and like I said, it's the I find most often when somebody pushes back, say on an executive, well, like, how do you know? What exactly did you say? How did you communicate? Most often, it doesn't take much to see they didn't communicate much. And they're going right back to, well, I sent an email, or a letter. I put in a link to a training video, or I sent an email, and it's like, that's awesome. Yeah. What else did you do? Well, then I wrote them up, or then I fired them. You're like, okay, that's a lot. It's more difficult, and it's so much more beneficial and rewarding. And both of those parts of the equation are true. It is more difficult to invest the time to properly communicate with teams, leadership teams, whether it is your colleagues, stakeholders, the persons that are working with you. It's more difficult. But again, it's ultimately far more rewarding, because at all of the percentages of success, meeting exceeding goals, employee retention, promotions, what have you, they all elevate when it's a series of communications that are connecting, landing, so to speak, is a better way to say it,
So we're talking a lot about communication here. And we talk a lot about practicing. So we're going to practice a little bit, John.
Oh my God. Are we really?
Practice communication.
Is that part of the show?
We're going to practice. We're going to practice communication today. All right.
Right.
And it's going to be, like so I used to be my first profession, I guess, so to speak. So I was a professional fighter long time ago, 10 lifetimes ago. It feels like 15, whatever, however many years ago, long time ago. And one of the things that we would do when I was preparing for a fight is you would want to you'd want to train in positions that were more difficult, perceivably more difficult than you would see in the fight. So we're going to practice our communication in situations that are probably more ridiculous and more difficult than we would probably see in real life. So we're going to play a game. It's called Communicate This. All right.
Communicate This.
And I was going to make it cool. I was going to make a cool banner, but I forgot. I was too worried about the actual scenarios. So I'm going to present you. I'm going to present you with a scenario.
Okay.
All right. And you're both going to have a title, a persona, so to speak, a situation.
Right.
Right. And then you have to communicate this outcome that we're trying to create. Right. Because of this situation.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what order these are going to be in. And I was kind of hoping here. I'm going to just bear with me here. I'm going to see if I can. Okay. So I'm just going to eeny, meeny, miny, mo. All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
There's going to be both acting and communication skills are being practiced.
Wow. All right.
All right. Okay. Oh crap! No, that's not the one I wanted to do first.
That's all right.
That was the only one I didn't want to do first. All right. You ready?
I'm
You're a
ready.
small business owner and you're about to hire your first employee. You promised your deadbeat brother the position, but because you hired Summit Papers, you're able to become much more clear on your next strategic move. You define this role much more clearly with clear expectations, initiatives, and quality training processes to set both them and your business up for success. That was a shameless plug. How do you break the news to your deadbeat brother? So you're communicating
Mhm.
this news that I can't hire you. You're not
Right.
what we need.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, we're going another direction. How do you communicate that to your brother? Put yourself in their shoes. I want to feel the situation. How do you communicate this to your brother?
That's absolutely outstanding. So I'm the oldest of five, as I said before. So I've got two sisters and two brothers,
Mm,
and I'm fans of all. So technically, this will require some acting because I don't have a deadbeat brother, but I have two brothers.
yeah.
And if they happen to be watching us live or on the replay, Tom, Brian, neither of these are you. But the fact of the matter is, look, it's funny. Now, you can do this in a humorous fashion, like I talked about being on the beach and just literally same way as I chose sides on the beach on a Sunday afternoon in regards to what I wanted to talk about. Hey, number one, I could probably build up a sand wall the other side and give them the subtle hint that I don't want to talk to them or it ain't them, or what you can do. And this is the one, which is this. I remember getting rejected for a job from a really dear friend, right? So, not quite sibling, but a really dear friend where I didn't get the job and someone else did, which is the clue. You can go slightly more direct. We made a decision and it's not you.
Mm,
Here's why. And you go to the assets of the other person. You don't go to the weaknesses. I still talk about it's a weird wrestling social media thing that I see all the often talk about. You know what grinds my gears? Well, so here's what grinds my gears. Inventing weaknesses for the other person. Don't. It just doesn't help. I remember being told when I didn't get a job in another scenario, well, you're not, that person, you're just not that great with math. Or I'm like, are you out of your mind? So don't head there. What are the attributes of the other person? I went with it and know the skill sets. Take the competition out of it. They were
mm,
better because look, here's exactly why we were hiring. We needed this, we needed that. Why did we need this and we need that? Here's a point in the company where we are at this point. So we went with someone else. It is not you. Let's keep a door open and hope they don't exclude you for the next Thanksgiving dinner. And that's the best I can do.
You're much kinder than I would have been. Like
I want to hear.
if it's
Give me
your
another
if it's your
example, man.
if it's your deadbeat brother, right? I mean, and this is the thing. Like I'm a
It
big fan of
happens. It
I'm
happens.
I'm a big fan of tough love, right?
Okay,
Look,
great.
I initially said I was at a low point. I was stressed out when I
Right.
offered you the job, and you need to get your shit together. And I finally understand where I need to go. I need this business to succeed. I have a family that I need to feed. You have a family that you need to you need to get better so that you can provide for them or that you can be a good example for. So I went another direction with this because I need my business to succeed. I need to succeed for XYZ reasons. And I probably would never hire I probably wouldn't hire you unless you did X, Y, and Z. How can I help you do X, Y, and Z?
All
That's
right. So
probably how I would.
if we're going to stay in the role play, I want to play the deadbeat brother for a moment. Just a moment. Which is like, so, yeah, but you promised me. You said you promised me this and you're breaking your word.
Well, things change. I hired an amazing company that's going to
It's
help
still
me.
your brother.
That has helped me. Well, you know what? Just because you're my brother doesn't mean I can sacrifice providing for my family. All right. So you can either be mad and I won't invite you to Thanksgiving dinner because you're deadbeat and you can't afford a turkey anyways. So uh
I wouldn't want to come to your ugly house anyway. Um,
it's funny, like so in my family, so I'm the youngest of six or seven, youngest of six.
yeah, yeah.
And so, like our like the Carlin side, like we don't
Mhm.
there's a lot of my family that doesn't talk to each other. So I'm
Yeah.
probably from my perspective on this one, it would be like it's pretty easy to just be like, "Well, I'm your brother." Well, okay, that's fine. I didn't choose that. I prefer to keep people around me who are going to elevate, my life and the people around me and add to it. I don't want people that are going to take away from it, sort of thing. So I'll, if you get your stuff together and you're
Yeah.
ready to be a good example for my kids, then you can come to Thanksgiving. But until then, I went a different direction, and I'm
So
very I'm very
you're
sorry.
not hiring me, and you broke your word, and now I can't come to Thanksgiving.
Yep, yep, yeah. I know life sucks. Life's unfair. It's the way it is.
I'm fine. Maybe we put something in the middle, more of that. All
Right
right,
up the
that's great.
middle.
There you
Right
go.
up the
I
middle.
don't mind breaking the news. All right,
Right,
that
you
part
ready?
all worked for me.
You ready
Yeah, I'm
for
ready.
another one? All
Yeah.
right. Let's see. All right. You are the owner of a business that sells alcoholic infused lollipops.
Mhm.
Alcohol infused lollipops. You just missed your Q3 quota and got dropped by a large vendor, which was a theme park in Louisiana, because they are too similar to the kids' lollipops and kids kept throwing up on the log ride. You need to communicate to the team that changes to the look of the product need to be made, and we need to get back on track to the end of the year. So you're communicating to your team that we need to find a new vendor for these alcohol infused lollipops, and we need to get back on track to end the year strong. How do you communicate that to your team?
Right. First off, I love the fact that you're going to have them at a theme park and then throw people on uh, death rides and just
Mhm.
up the ante. Back in the day when I did drink, this would have been great.
Mhm.
Um, I'd have been all over this. And a trip to Six Flags would have been so much cooler.
Mhm.
With that being said, but you've got this example. I'm reading Chrissy's comment.
I chose violence was firing his
Violence,
brother.
right?
Well,
There you
technically, I
go.
didn't fire him. I just chose not to hire him.
You
But
removed him from the fam. You
I
removed me
ripped
from
the
the
rug. I ripped
family.
the rug
Um,
out from underneath of them. Yeah, it is. It is. I
all
look.
right, Chrissy, I love it. Now I'm going to focus on this one for a half second, which is simple. All right, this. So we need to we need to change the look of the product, and we need to get back in gear, so to speak, fast, right? So right away, Zach, you had said earlier when you were talking about in the intro, when you're like, can you believe that we're already at the end of August? So it's like that sense of needing to move quickly. There's a good inherent, your timing's good, by the way,
Mhm.
because there's an inherent sense at this moment of more of the sense of rush. I can't believe it's already going to be September in 5 minutes or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Here's what I get say, which is look, hey team, uh, I love these lollipops.
Yeah.
It's how it gets me through a lot of our team meetings. The best. I do not need to go to rehab. I do not. I know exactly what I'm doing. But you guys, can't you make the adult? All right, I was going to make a suggestion, and I'm going to take those words away,
You make
which is
the
make
adult
them look
lollipop.
more adult. And my mind went into a really ugly direction. So here's a thought: promote the adult part better. I don't know, make them look like Pat McAfee, because everybody associates more adult with Pat McAfee. He's great.
Mhm.
Can you make the lollipops look a little bit more adult like? Hey team, I leave this. That's why I'm paying you the big bucks. Give me a design that looks more like an adult, so that those poor kids are not upside down throwing up on all the other unsuspecting people, which is gross for a lot of reasons. Um,
I would want to
but
know like, where the strategic initiative came from to choose
lollipops.
theme parks as your ICP. Like, I feel like there's probably better, vendors and, distributors that you could probably think of, right? I would probably probably start there. Like, where did we go?
I
Like,
love
let's
this.
have a strategic meeting.
You're reminding me of a promotion, and I, like I said, it's I don't often take credit for a lot, but I'm going to take credit for this because it happened. We were given an opportunity at the television station that I was running for Mike's Hard Lemonade, and they were just breaking in. Now everybody's got hard products, and and all everybody does, but it was much less common to be infusing common drinks. So where we worked was a section of town in Philadelphia, and so we created this fun day. I actually co-created it with a buddy of mine who was at that time a personal trainer, and he came up with this idea. So what we did is we took over Main Street. Literally, it's called Main Street. And so we took over Main Street and created this thing where we had people riding kiddie rides. Like, it was a competition where it was people getting pulled in like wagons or riding big wheels or what have you. And these are adults. So one of the things that was happening, by the way, at the time, was I saw at least one crying kid because they wanted Mike's Hard Lemonade because it was lemonade. So it was there in supply. How we were able to get through the city ordinances to make this work, I don't know, but we did. Not sure how hard we checked. But I'm going to say we've got the whole street going with these silly rides that look like kiddie rides. Kiddie rides, lemonade. It looks like a kiddie promotion. The only difference was everybody was adults, except in a couple of instances. And the kids are crying because they can't get on the big wheels, and they're crying because they can't. But at least people were paying attention. All I can say, which is know your circumstances, for God's sake. A theme park where the primary audience is kids would not be the place where I would be maybe having lollipops as your drinking choice of game. So my thought would be, could you put it in another product?
I mean, there you go. So how would you? So we need to communicate that to the team. All right, team. Look, our initiative wasn't on point at this time. We learned our lesson. Some kids got puked on. That wasn't really good for our PR. It's not
just
really
the kids. There was adults too, and they were all like,
it wasn't
right?
very good. This wasn't a good. This wasn't a good move. So how do we adjust? How do we move forward? Let's have.
What will the park allow, and what will it not? So
I want
right
two people.
away.
I want two people to go out. I want two people who feels that they're the most in tune with our product and could identify who our product would be most suited for. Okay, go out there and find a bunch of them. On the rest of you, we're going to find different options other than just these colorful lollipops.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you can't have a lollipops team, but the fact is we don't want them in the hands of little kids getting freaked out or drunk. We want the kids, but it's what will the parks allow? So, for instance, you go to the park, we won't allow cans or bottles. Great, you'll allow open containers. Can we? You're trying to find what the park will do, because the last thing you want to do in Louisiana or anywhere is have vagueness regarding alcohol or I was going to say narcotics. It ain't narcotics, but I mean, cannabis infused anything should be fairly clear that there's nothing wrong with either one, but it should be fairly clear of what you are getting, not confused with it's a lollipop or a kitty themed whatever. So
I'd want to know who the owner or whoever the individual was that signed the contract to allow the lollipops in their theme park to begin with, because I feel like they're part of they're probably most.
Well, of course they are. They just want Libby
right next to the kids.
Bought some seats, and so we don't care. It's just
and I would do more. In our contracts, we need to have it much more clear in our contracts what this product is, where they're allowed and not allowed to put it. Right, like that. That would be my.
Lastly, not to get overly technical, theme parks are really proprietary. So they're often pretty good with rules and regs as it regards to,
Well, not this one, John.
yeah, well, apparently no.
Not this one. All right.
All
right.
right.
You're a new manager, freshly hired, second week on the job for a customer service agency. You just walked in on 2 of your employees doing drugs in the bathroom.
Ooh.
You bring them into your office immediately, and upon investigation, you find out everyone on your team is on drugs. The tricky part is your team is by far the best performing team and has brought in a lot of business for the company. What do you say to your boss?
Wait a minute. Oh, all right. So in terms of the next level, you're now
a new
aware
manager.
that everybody on the
You're
team is
communicating
doing
to
drugs.
like the CEO, the VP of whatever, right? How do you have that? What do you say to your boss?
Okay. So
Everyone's on drugs.
So maybe you lead with, hey, boss, here's the good news. We're up 37% year over year in regards to our projections. In terms of our KPIs, we're hitting a number of things. And by the way, our team is staying later. They are more engaged in the job and are really laser focused. Here's the slight challenge. They're laser focused because they're all gassed.
They're all on drugs.
So we wasn't aware, certainly not me. I do not, I will not, and I will not. We have a zero tolerance policy, a zero tolerance policy toward this. However, I don't see where it hurts because they are really performing well. Here are the KPIs. Here are the percentages. Here are the year over year. We've got, in fact, 2 standouts, as a matter of fact, that are really excelling. It was very interesting to me that they are. I'm reading Chris's comment. I love that, right? So it's like, hey, look. I would lay out all of the good news because here's what I've learned. And this is the part. Former boss said it to me early, last television company that I was a part of. And there was a lot of turbulence early on in terms of our specific part of the company, I'll just say, to make it vague and generic, right? There was a lot of turbulence. There were people that just got let go. So I have a new boss. And this is in the first 30 days, right? One of the first things she said to me, and I never forgot it, was, John, I don't want bad surprises. So I took it as, okay, I'm just going to make you aware. So the very first thing, which requires a little bit of bravery, and by the way, from the boss that you're talking about, the boss, you got to know that bad surprises are awful because if, say, you're in the company, and like, do you remember those? People don't do it anymore for this reason. Do you remember those old school, what they used to call the holiday party?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So around the holidays, or let me give you a more specific example that I'm a part of, so that this way I don't have to throw anyone else under a bus. There was a time where I didn't quite understand, to put it mildly, the holiday party doesn't mean it is a freeloading spring break senior week experience. It simply means it is a test. I didn't pass a couple of those tests back in the day. I can remember getting hammered out of my mind at an event and literally being thrown into an elevator to leave the scene by another colleague, right?
Mm.
And so my evening ended apparently at 8 p.m. So I was thrown away because I didn't quite know the boundary that this doesn't mean free fall or get hammered. So go back to the no boss wants bad surprises. You're now aware. Use that line. I am now aware. I have been made aware, because the very first thing often a boss will say is, how long did you know that? Or why didn't you know? I'm not sure why I don't know. However, I find to people that were making a really bad impression on the copy machine, and I wanted to get right in front of that. So I did. And so I want you to be aware. But by the way, here's the last thing. No boss wants bad surprises. And the other thing is, so the very next thing they're going to ask you, so what are we going to do? Right? So right away, what are we going to do? The whole team is doing drugs. Well, I'm not going to fire the whole team. We're up X% in everything, and they're doing great. We also know that this is not a way that we can maintain. So what will I do? I will have a team meeting first off and make everyone aware or remind everyone. You just literally a week ago were talking about the too tired to HR in this live setting, and I remember that, right? So one of the things that you could do is, look, we could either turn this into an HR issue or we could turn it into an opportunity. The opportunity is this. We're up right now. Before things get any more out of control, we're going to have conversations with the team. We're going to remind them of the policy, that this isn't acceptable. And as a company, we've got stakeholders, we've got public relations. We cannot have this go any further forward. So now that we're both aware, I made you aware as the boss. I'm now aware. Here are the steps that we're going to take. And of course, the boss is going to have input. They're going to say no, or yeah, or whatever. But holding things in is never a great idea. It just isn't.
I could see this going a few different ways. So I would say that the boss you're communicating this to your boss and you're like, look, here's our projections. Our approval rating is this. Netflix is whoever we're working with.
Yeah.
Is whoever our clients are right now are wanting to sign contracts going, another 2 years, which increases the revenue like this. Give them all the good news. I totally agree.
Always start with something good.
Yeah. And then the boss will be like, what are you doing? How are you doing this?
How you doing it?
How you doing it? I'd be like, well, you see, it's not as much me as it is probably our friend, not our friend, but probably not. It's more to do with like the math that everybody's doing. I'm just assuming it is because you said everyone's zoned in, right?
Laser focused.
And these are customer service reps, so they can't afford the the more expensive stuff, right? So they're probably doing the old what do they call it? Baby Blue from Breaking Bad, and
I love that.
And then I think the boss, he'll freak out and be like, everybody has to stop doing it. They can't, like, this is ridiculous. Absolutely not. Because he's thinking of all the bad things that could happen in his head. That's where our brains go, right? I'm just going by human nature right now.
Well, you brought up Breaking Bad. You know how that concluded.
Yeah,
so the
exactly.
fact is,
right.
it
wasn't a happy ending. It was a good.
No, it's like Jesse almost got killed and then had to run. So
but again, there's the boss. He's like, it's going in a million different directions. He probably has a boss that he reports to. He's like, nope, cut it out now. Like, or put it under the rug, right? I don't want any negativity. I don't want to get wind of this. This is all going to fall on me. I'm like, okay, we'll stop. And then you get everybody to stop doing drugs, but then guess what happens to their performance? Netflix retracts their contract. You start losing money, and because humans fear losing what they have more than they fear or they want to gain things, right? We fear losing. The emotion of losing is stronger than the emotion of gaining, right? So he's seeing like, we're about to lose all these contracts. We're about like, and that's gonna be reported. That's gonna fall on me, right? That's my responsibility. And then I think that the boss is gonna feel that, and he'll be like, you know what? We'll set a shed out upside where they can do the drugs and perform better, so it's not on property, and so they can perform better. I think he'll find a way to make it work.
So Walter and Jesse can literally like be in the shed, so to speak.
I think they'll sign a contract with Heisenberg.
To
make it work.
Sure.
I think I just immediately that's how I think it's going to go. And by the way, these are all jokes. Everybody who's watching, these are
we're not advocating.
We don't advocate for any of this. However, I just know I'm just a big studier and I understand human nature, right? So he's going to freak out at first. Performance is going to tank, but what's more expensive? Firing the whole team and hiring and training new people, and then hoping that they work out and have the same results as the ones prior that were on the said narcotics, or are you just going to like, no, just just keep doing what we got to do, and then we'll set up a thing outside, and we'll park a van outside, and you can do what you need to do to get them to perform the way that we're performing. That's
So
just
do we
in this
also hire Gus
hypothetical.
Friend? Do we hire Gus Friend? Do we hire Gus Friend to set up an El Pollo chicken or whatever it was on the show to make certain that he can also be a great manager underneath you to make certain that everyone is towing the line, so to speak, and doesn't get killed in an ugly death?
I don't, you know what? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think they're just going to want to go back to the way things were. I don't think they want to bring any more attention, no more payroll. Because Gus, he's expensive. He's expensive. He's going to be a six-figure. That's a six-figure contract with benefits and that kind of thing. Like you're costing, that's going to be $200,000 a year at least.
Right. Not to mention legal fees.
Right. So no, I think you just keep. I think you go back to where it was before. You just put processes and procedures in place to make sure that it stays hush hush, right? That would be
as hush hush as it's going to.
That would be the smart thing to do.
But the part of that's fine. But this is where you, as the leader, not you personally, you as the leader, need to now really be on this. No pun intended, like a detective. So that as things progress, if it's your results, great. And they're progressing, that's awesome. If they progress in another direction, you really need to move on this fast. But again, just sitting on the situation is problematic.
Yeah. No, and this is also an absolutely hypothetical, never should happen scenario. Just so
let's hope not.
Completely aware again that these are jokes. This is the Summit Coffee Club. We're here to unwind from the week, not to give, not to like, if this actually happens, if you're the manager and this actually happens, immediately go to HR and figure out what to do and separate yourself from it as much as possible.
Hustle up.
Yeah, absolutely not. Like communicate it immediately and to HR and figure things out from there.
There you go.
Don't do what we're saying to do right now.
And I don't. I'm like equally amazed that I am able to very quickly retrieve cast member names of the cast on Breaking Bad.
Look, our brains are
role models.
This is an amazing comment by Chrissy, though. The theme park deadbeat brother to do procurement for sure, for sure. He heard alcoholic infused lollipops. Hey, can you throw on like an extra few boxes for me for free? And then we got a deal.
And then you got a deal.
Then we did it. And he just threw it up. He just threw it up next to the other lollipops.
I love that you're thinking forward. Okay.
Yeah. All right, last one. You're an executive getting ready to retire in a few months. It was put on you to decide who will be taking your place when you are gone. You have two top candidates in mind, and up until yesterday, it was a very close call. Both candidates seem to be perfect for the role, and they both think they are shoo-ins for the position. However, you learned that one of the candidates has gone viral on TikTok because of this very demure, very mindful trend. How do you let that person know that they're fired?
All right. Here's the quick, direct answer. First of all, I love that. I love that you pay attention. I believe very strongly in the last episode of the Coffee Club. It was Chrissy talking about jumping the shark. So I'm going to continue that conversation in that it's very true. These sorts of trends are very short term. I just saw that person, by the way, on Jimmy Kimmel, where RuPaul was the guest host covering for Jimmy Kimmel in the summer. That person made network television. Last week, they were on network TV and also on continuing to crush social media with their well over, I think it's 1 million+ followers at this point. Yeah. So anyway, here's the deal. Hopefully they have that person, the candidate, has more in the tank than just being very demure, very mindful. Because when you jump the shark or when that gets tiresome, very tiresome, then what? Now, trends can be wonderful because it's an indicator that this person is innovative, thinking forward, and latching on to something. My strong suspicion, and I'm going to go back to Chris as that reminder, these things don't last forever. There was somebody on your show last week, Zach. Oh, that's right. It was you, who literally rolled their eyes almost in disgust when I commented about very demure, very mindful. So how do I let them know that they're fired? You're taking your eye off the ball. That's literally what it is. So you go from a very team-oriented atmosphere to a very singularly focused look at me. So that's the thing where if I am going to let that person know, specifically the one with the trend, right? How do I let them know? You're taking emphasis away from the team. This is a team sport. It's a team business because you singularly have a catchphrase. That's great and all that. But our goals are this. Our aspirations are this. As a team, we're going to go in this direction. So while we love creativity, we're all the way over here now because of this. And we can't focus on the other goals. And we, as a team, it's just not something that we're going to be able to work with. So we're going to go with the other candidate because they have hit these KPIs. We're going to go with this other candidate because rather than the classic, they're a better fit. Demonstrate how are they, the other candidate, a good fit? And often bring it back to the expectations, bring it back to the stated goals, and bring it back to the team or the business. We love that you're out here on your own. We love the fact that you know how to apply makeup for an interview and a job, and that you're going to teach us how. God, I almost wish I didn't know that detail. So
I didn't know that detail.
Oh, I
had no idea.
It was like you can't get out. That's how it started. Some person
Oh,
putting on
makeup. It started with that. Yeah.
Started with that. And so what I'm saying is now that person is singularly identified as all of those things. But in the meantime, we've got a team that we're looking to build. Our expectations out, and the key word is our communicative expectations are this. I would choose the other person because they're more in line with the team because it's already a very close call. I don't need the distractions of your TikTok video when we're all trying to accomplish this.
Yeah,
That's
I think you're right. And again, I'm joking for the most part, right? Like this isn't. It is like that doesn't have a big. It wouldn't play a big part in whether I'd choose somebody or I wouldn't choose somebody. However, I'm assuming like this person when I was writing this scenario. Like this is an executive who's getting ready to retire in a few months. This is somebody who's high up in the business, whether CEO, COO, CFO, whatever it is.
Sure.
And then you're picking between two candidates, right? And I always look at whether if you're a business owner or you're a high up executive or whatever it is, or you want to be a high performer, are the things that you're focused on and you're putting importance on in line with the goals that you're trying to achieve. And a lot of times these trends, unless you're wanting to go, unless what will allow you or what will make it more likely that you're going to have success specifically in the goals that you're trying to achieve is to go viral and get a bunch of people on your social media platforms and that kind of stuff. Okay, fine. If it's the right people, right? Because if you're somebody who's trying to be more of an educator, if you're somebody who's trying to be more like we are, we want to put out educational content, semi-entertaining kind of stuff. Like we're trying to be more relaxed and take the stuffy out of some of these things, right? And if that's your goal, but then you're focusing on the more vanity focused metrics and outcomes, like I just want to tag on this trend just so I can go viral for no reason, then that's telling me that you do not have your priorities right, and you're willing to skew from the vision, you're willing to skew from the mission, and you're willing to focus and put your energy into things that aren't going to get us to where we want to go. That's what that's telling me. And like there's all sorts of trends that, like there's the one on Instagram, and I've talked about it before, where it was like a half a second video has this weird beep in it, and then they put up like a paragraph that you're supposed to read, and they do that because every time you're trying to read through this freaking paragraph, and every time it beeps, that's one view. So you're just getting a bunch of views so people can read this stupid paragraph that probably doesn't mean anything, and you're just following this trend for the sake of just getting more followers, for the sake of just these vanity metrics that don't actually matter in getting you towards the specific goal that you're trying to achieve. So if you're somebody who's willing to do that and willing to take your time to do that, then you're probably not somebody who I would want in a role, or I would put in a role that has a very specific outcome that we're trying to achieve, that needs consistency, that needs you need to set a good example. You need to set this
Progression.
example.
Things should lead to something.
Exactly.
Steps.
So if I'm putting on my serious hat for a few seconds, that's why I, in this case, would not hire this person. I would not have picked this person, because you're willing to sacrifice the goal, the main goal, the vision and the mission for a side quest, for these vanity metrics that don't innately mean anything other than I got more views.
Yeah,
which doesn't translate
for me, not for us, right? Yay for me. Which that expression always makes me sick. When, you know what I mean? Where it's like, it's the incomplete antithesis of what anyone is trying to do in an organization, is to have what the lone wolf, so to speak, you know, the yay for me type. It is bring it back to the business. Always bring it back to the business.
And for the most part, and again, for the most part, people, like, they can have lives outside of the business. They can have lives outside of their job and all that kind of good stuff. But if I'm choosing, if I have to choose, this is a very important decision. I have to take all the facts into consideration. I have to. You have to. It's just the way it is. And social media, unfortunately, it plays a big role into that now. It's like, how are you being perceived to the public? When you have people who are, when you have top candidates who are picking, okay, am I going to choose to apply for this company or this company, or I'm picking between two roles and I want to pick this company over this company, and you have an A player that you want, like, they're going to do their due diligence. Okay, this is going to be my boss. I'm going to go check them out. I'm going to go look and see what they're doing. Right. And it's like, oh, well, their focus seems to be more on their own social media.
On themselves.
Somewhere else. And so yes, you can, you can do what you want, right? You can do what you want. But again, if the more and more successful that you want to be, and the higher that you want to climb, whether it's in your own business, your own career, your own undertaking, whatever it is, all these factors have to be taken into consideration. They just do.
I'm just amplifying what you're saying, which is the sense that people take that sense of entitlement, in that this is my social media page. That's great. You're technically very correct. So I can espouse my political views, or my finger pointing, or something that is way off the target. Nothing aside from, there's zero wrong for that person with this very demure, very mindful. They're now getting network television deals. So I'm not saying don't do it. But in the context of, you have to understand, if you are in some sort of competitive atmosphere in work, it is part of the competition process. So I'm always going to vote for the one that is, I'm a massive advocate of using your social media, but it is always, for me, in the context of two rules. Number one, it typically 95% of the time focuses either on my business or the sense of the good sense, common sense, and good judgment of knowing that if it has to do with I can do anything I want, it is rarely a good move to use that mindset. Always know that people are looking, man. Always know.
No, 100%, 100%. And it's again, you can do what you want. Like, I'm not saying
technically you can do anything you want.
Just because I think these trends are ridiculous doesn't mean they don't work. They haven't made people a lot of money. They haven't made people successful. They haven't blah, 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 all these kind of things. We're talking specifically for if you're a business owner, especially if you're a small business owner and you're trying to hire for a number two, you're trying to hire for a key role, you're trying to hire for somebody that could have a huge impact on your business, the way your business is perceived, the way your business performs. You got to take these things into consideration. And that's one thing that I would probably be like, their focus is elsewhere, and they care more about vanity metrics than they do, actual. And again, if those vanity metrics are, if they're in line with their goals, cool. But I'm a business owner. I'm in line with the vision and mission of what the company is trying to achieve. And if it's not in line, then, but I mean, if I'm hiring for like a social media manager person who's very good at understanding the trends and how to utilize them, then maybe
I'll look at the best benefit, me or the team. Everybody can do what they want, including the hiring person can do what they want. So you get the entitlement out of the way. Yeah, I got a X 100,000 views, and I got nothing as it relates to the organization. And so because of this, so folks, in terms of a communicative process, really try to take out the good, bad, right, wrong in terms of your progressive communications. But you're always allowed to make a decision, which is if it's in the best interests of the organization, best interests in the current needs or the future goals, or both, right? You make decisions based on that as a leader rather than that person's good, that person's bad. It's first off, that's bad business. Secondly, the person receiving the rejection, it hurts a whole lot less. I'll put it that way. That person that I shared earlier that shared to me that they were choosing another candidate was so human about what they were asking for. So on point that we've remained very dear friends, and I respected that decision. It's like they get to make a decision. And it was such a human way to say it, as opposed to making up reasons why you're not good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's why you have to be when you're hiring for these positions. I mean, this is kind of this was the trend that we were on this month was hiring and clearly understanding the roles that you're hiring for.
Right.
Like all that stuff has to be taken into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to look at what are as many angles as I can think of that would set this role up, this individual that I'm bringing in for success. And when I say what is setting this role up for success as in, okay, this is the role, this is the outcome that the role needs to create. This is
right.
a byproduct of us bringing in and creating this role. Set that up for success, just like we're setting this person up for success, and be really, really clear in that, because then you can make much better decisions because you're taking more information into account and more information that is conducive to the outcome you're trying to create. But yeah, anyways, that's a whole other topic. These were fun. These were fun.
I think that was absolutely outstanding, as they said. And anytime that you can bring in, as they said, alcohol-infused lollipops, drug-infused team.
Yeah. Well,
I was
really trying to challenge.
Well, then what the hell? It just feels like a perfect scenario of the hire fire game.
Yeah, we covered the bases.
I'll give you one real fast. I'll give you one more example of a way not to play the game. We were at a managers conference. I won't say with what media organization, but I was part of the team, and I was a fairly new member of the team. And the team leader, the big Mahaf, will say, right, who was running this, literally is playing a game with a game. So similar to this, but the game was called Keep 'em or Ditch 'em. So can you imagine in this mindset of companies now, keep 'em or ditch 'em? And so certain people drank more than others that day and got a lot more aggressive in terms of the way they play the game and the rationale for it. And I'm going to say, in an organization, the keep 'em or ditch 'em, and we just make, names, every name of the sales team. Zach Carlin, keep 'em or ditch 'em. It was like that, right?
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh my God, I barely had started. I'm like, I'm not throwing anybody under a bus. You'd be amazed at how many people behind closed doors are more than willing to play that game.
Yeah.
I hate his beard. Hate his beard, and oh my God, that really pretty hair, and and he's all fit. No, ditch him. So I'm not saying that weird personal decisions factor into the decision making. Sadly, they do. So your social media, or the sense that, hey, it's the weekend, or hey, I'm just saying, I'm just being honest, are terrible ways to do that. People are paying attention. Higher ups are paying attention. What I am saying is you also have to explain you're accountable too, in terms of your own decisions as a leader. And the key, you want to make it easier, be really direct, be really kind in your communications, be really direct, be really kind, and keep it always tied to the business.
Yeah.
They are the best person, and that's why we chose them.
Yeah. And I guess like we keep saying, like being really clear
Mhm.
on the outcome that you're trying to create. Like
Absolutely.
be really open-minded. Like they, you know, like making a decision, it's two parts. It's taking all the information into
Mhm.
account objectively, right? Remove your biases, get other people's input, get other sides of the story, take in all the information. Right. And when we say all, it's not just the information that you currently have in your head, it's all the information. Right.
All.
All of it, and look at it from erase your biases, all those kinds of
Mhm.
things. Taking all the information and then make the decision. Where a lot of people are like, "Hey, here's the information. Okay, I'm gonna make a decision."
Mhm.
Right, and that's how bad decisions are made because then you're
Yeah, don't
relying
be
only on
lazy. Don't be
most lazy.
lazy in the decision-making
And,
process, and don't be lazy in the communications part of
yeah.
that process too.
Well,
Don't.
and
You don't
if
need
you
to.
have all the information and you take in all the
Mhm.
information, it's a lot easier not to be lazy with your communication because then you're much more clear on what needs to be communicated.
And
You
people
gotta be
take and people
diligent.
receive information better. And ultimately, whether you're managing up, whether you are speaking with shareholders, stakeholders, your
Yeah.
executive board, whether you are speaking to those clients like the theme park, you need, like I said, your goal is to keep things moving forward rather than my goal is to just tell it like it is or ridden yourself. You want to keep the clients, you want to keep the stakeholders happy. But again, no bad surprises, no swerving. Say it in the best, most direct way that you're able to say it, which is way easier said than done.
Big time. Kristen, thanks for being here.
Ah,
Love
there
these
you go.
scenarios. We had quite a few people here. I was looking at the numbers. The numbers kept jumping up. So
Love it.
jump on in. Like we wanted to hear your what would you have done, Kristen, if you found out that one of your products was causing a bunch of kids to puke and you lost that sounded weird. That came out weird. If somebody just came in just now and read that, that would be odd. But we'd like to hear what you guys would have done. But thank you very much for being here. And I 100% agree. Everyone tends to be too serious when it comes to business.
Right.
It's serious enough. That's why we're doing these Summit Coffee Clubs because it doesn't need to
Mhm.
be. We're all humans. We all need to relax. We all need to see things from different light. And honestly, having more fun allows us to be more creative. These scenarios were ridiculous. I know that. And the
Mhm.
way we handled them was ridiculous. It was supposed to be. But having fun, being ridiculous, a lot of
Mhm.
times allows us to be more creative. We see things from
Yep.
different perspective, different sides, different points of view,
Mhm.
and you'd be really surprised when we let ourselves go from our little boxes that we keep ourselves in, when we let ourselves go from the biases that we have, how many great ideas we can come up with, how expansive our thought processes can be. That's why we do this. That's why we try to have fun with it because being creative, it allows us to
Exactly.
open up boxes that just we don't even think to look in.
You just made me one more reminder of the immense gratitude of decisions that I made. And as I said, in the mindset of a sunny Saturday or Sunday on a beach, right?
Mhm.
And I could have literally just kept my ears closed or tried to mentally check out when I was feeling this vibe. All of those were fun conversations. None of
Yeah.
them were heavy, but they helped me, those beach conversations that I kept gravitating more to the communications and advertising side. They were all fun. The
Yeah.
reason that I was able to make a decision that I am now 30 plus years into true, authentic, productive business conversations that lead somewhere was and remains the element of fun and humanity.
Mhm.
That's what it was. They were more fun for me to listen to, so I paid attention. And on the days when I started that journey, right, and it was challenging, and nobody was saying yeah to me, and nobody cared that that my sisters were X or Y. That had nothing to do with them making business decisions. It
Mhm.
fueled me to keep going.
Mhm.
And those are the reasons why, folks, as a reminder in the communications process, you're always speaking to someone rather than at someone, because it is a relationship business. Just you
Right.
have to earn and continue to earn that relationship, or otherwise they get tired and old, you know?
Mhm. Mhm. Exactly. All right. Mic drop moment. Let's
Boom.
we've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes, which is
Yeah,
totally
man.
fine. People are coming in and out. We're just hanging out. So, anyways, I appreciate everybody for being here. Kristen, Chrissy, Adrena, and the 27 other people that were here but didn't say anything. I really appreciate you. And again, sign up for that's what I'm trying to say. Sign up for the newsletter so you can keep up with all the new shows, the guests, and all the amazing topics that we have been talking about. And again, the other 2 live shows that we have are a little bit more serious than this one. Founders Focus, we're going to be doing specific summit framework principles, business foundational principles that you can take away and utilize in your business right away. And then Summit Success Series, that's where we focus on the founders, on the people who are trying to drive for heightened success in their own life, so you can understand the habits that you have, how to break those habits, mental blocks that you may have, and skills that you can develop that maybe aren't as obvious as you might think. You're not going to find them in textbooks. You might find them in some books. All right. But this is, how do you actually utilize some of these habit building skills and habit building tactics to become a higher performing individual in whatever you are doing? So we're very excited for those ones. Have some great guests lined up for that one as well. But until next time, everybody, follow John and keep chasing your next summit.